We have live pictures now from the 9/11 Memorial in Lower Manhattan, where today the names of thousands of Americans will be read aloud, one by one. Joining us now from Lower Manhattan, member of the Intelligence and Homeland Security Committees, Republican Congressman Peter King of New York. Very good to have you on the show this morning. Congressman, I guess we should begin looking back and remembering all those who were lost on 9/11. By also looking ahead and asking exactly how much safer we are today and if this administration has increased our safety or decreased it around the globe.
Yeah, first of all, it's an honor to be here today to come back and to realize the tremendous heroism and the bravery of that day, and also to still mourn for those who were lost. There was just so many lost, so many friends and neighbors, and it's a day that none of us will ever forget. We are in this country, and this is bipartisan, going back to President Bush in 2001, continuing through President Obama and now President Trump, here at home, and also the coordination overseas with the allies. No matter what disputes we may have, the fact is, even during the height of the Iraq War, when the French and the U.S. weren't really in much contact, the intelligence agencies were. So here in the U.S., we have Homeland Security, CIA, FBI, DIA, here in New York, working with the NYPD, the Nassau Suffolk County Police, State Police, all working together, Joint Terrorism Task Force, and then our allies are sharing information. Again, this has continued unabated since 2001. I think it's safe to say that a 9/11 type attack could never happen again. It would be a 1 in a million shot. Having said that, the enemy is always adapting. The enemy is always changing. So we have to adapt and try to stay ahead of them all the time. So every day of the week, 24/7, 52 weeks a year, all of these intelligence agencies I mentioned to you, all of the overseas friends and allies we have, or even those who are just allies of convenience, are sharing information with us to try to head off the next attack. But again, we never know when it's going to happen. We've had many offshoots. Back in 9/11, there were several people operating out of a cave in Afghanistan. Now we have ISIS, we have Al-Shabaab, we have all these other variations, Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula. We have the internet, which is being used to have terrorists emerge out of a basement, being self-energized. So all of this, it's still an ongoing challenge. The threat is still there. But the good news is that there's much more coordination, and a 9/11 type attack will be very difficult. But we have to look out for dirty bomb attacks, low-yield nuclear attacks. But again, we're aware, we're alert, much more than we were in the days leading up to 9/11.
Congressman King, it's Willie Geist. You've been a leader in taking care of the first responders who worked on that pile for weeks and months after the attack of September 11th. We've been talking a lot about the victims that day. I want to talk more about the victims that came afterward. Some 2,000 first responders have died because they got sick breathing in that toxic air as they worked to look for remains, as they unpeeled all that steel and all that glass. By some estimates, Congressman, there could, by the end of this year, just a few months from now, be more deaths to that group of people than there were from the attack that day. What more does this country need to do to take care of those men and women?
Well, we have to do everything we possibly can. And this has been one of my most unfortunate experiences in Congress, that it took us so long. It took us from 2001 to the end of 2010 before this 9/11 Health Fund was set up. And then we had to reauthorize it again in 2015. It was only created for 5 years. Now, so we have it extended now for the next 75, 80 years, and the funding will be there. And I would encourage anyone who is at ground zero, anyone who is even near ground zero during those days, to sign up. There's a registry, because the illnesses and the diseases that these people have gotten from 9/11, they're very rare in so many cases, and some of them are latent. And it's only now that some people realize they have a 9/11 type blood disorder or a cancer or a tumor. There's so many lung diseases. We can go through the list of these rare diseases. So anyone who's there, they have special doctors now who are attuned just to these type illnesses and have people register. And we have an absolute obligation to make sure that every one of them gets the medical assistance they need, their families are compensated, because again, I guess I started noticing about 2 or 3 years after 9/11, young men and women in the prime of life just coming down with these debilitating type illnesses, and then people in Congress say it was all a hoax. It was terrible.
Congressman King, this is David Ignatius in Washington. One of the things we remember on this anniversary, and especially at the spot you are at Ground Zero, is how unified America was in the immediate aftermath of 9/11. And I want to ask you, as a leading member of Congress, what is it that Congress could do, what is it that this White House could do to bring more of a sense of unity to the country 17 years later?
Yeah, and I would say let's talk to both. Let's talk to the White House. Let's talk to Congress, both parties in Congress. We have to find ways, areas we agree on, and emphasize that, so the American people will see that where we disagree, there are honest areas of disagreement, not just fighting for the sake of fighting, not just appealing to the narrow bases of our party, which is what happens today. I mean, what happened with Ronald Reagan and Tip O'Neill, for instance, on Social Security, on other issues where you had the most conservative president ever, maybe the most liberal speaker at that time that there was, coming together to actually forge compromise. They fought hard. They went against each other when they had to, but they also knew the importance of finding common ground. That, I think, would show the American people that we're not just in this for cheap partisan gain, but we do have the interest of the country at hand. So when there are real disagreements, people will know they're real. But right now, it's hard to tell what's real and what's not. We fight over everything. And I think, again, I would ask the president, I would ask the members of Congress, the Senate, the House, to find areas where we agree and then fight over the areas where we don't. And in those areas where we don't, try to find some sort of common ground.
Congressman Peter King, thank you so much for being on the show this morning.
Thank you.
Honoring those who were lost. And we will be right back with much more Morning Joe.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.